hopefully it's not too hard. So as you read this quote, and I'm going to go ahead and read it out loud, there is something so powerful when one is confronted with the realization that knowing a language may not be enough. And I just hoped you could just write something in chat real quick to record what, how does this resonate with you? Not anything profoundly, long, but just something real quick. What does this sound like to you? How does it connect with something that you might know? Oh, let me stay on that. Good Lord. All right. I keep pressing buttons. It keeps going. All right. So I'll give everyone a chance to kind of come back to this in a minute, and we'll come back to this quote real quick. I want to check is there's everyone's in the room. Am I not able to see the chat, or is just people not typing anything yet? Okay, thank you, Simon, for that. There is more to language and connection than knowing how language works and operates. Okay, that's awesome. I totally agree with that. I think there's a lot to that. All right, so as we go through this quick presentation and cultural activity, I just wanted to reflect back on this as it's in my experience right now, traveling through South America and over the next few months. This has become a very central piece of my cognitive dissonance, I guess, to put it lightly, that I know how to speak Portuguese, I know how to speak Spanish, I know how to speak English, but somehow knowing Spanish or knowing Portuguese is just not enough. And there's other things that come into play. And so thanks, Simon, for that. And Nicole, I see, I just want to read yours out loud. I think we always need to consider that there are many contexts and connotations to words, and it goes beyond just the words we use. Knowing how to speak the language is one thing, and using it to empower ourselves is another. I just can't tell you how much I appreciate that. Being in a country where the language is being spoken so fast, and everything is coming so quickly, I thought I could keep up, and it just sometimes feels like it's just not enough. And so thank you for that, and we'll hopefully address that through this process. And I'll read other comments as they pop up. So thank you for sharing. Let me see. Here we go. So the presentation today and activity is just an opportunity for me to share some work that we've been doing in the Washington area, specifically in Western Washington and the Central Washington area. My partner Dr. Peterson. Barbara is unable to make it with us today. There's some technical stuff, but I just wanted to recognize her, and I'll do that here in a second. But the idea is to engage learners and readers in reading the world through wordless picture books. So there's a lot of work, some work being done internationally and nationally about the idea of wordless picture books, but most of it is in the elementary area. There's quite a plethora of work and research to support that, but not as much in the adolescent and young adult and adult area. And so this presentation is hopefully just an entry point for us and for me and for Dr. Peterson, for Barbara, who is working with some kids in Eastern Washington, to engage in this process to activate, as you see down there, to activate prior knowledge, stimulate and co-create language, and strengthen critical thinking. And mainly to stimulate agency, right? To get kids and young adults and adults as they grow into that part of their lives to be engaged politically, socially, economically, culturally, and then experience success and achievement, both in and out of academic settings. We just want people to be able to read and feel confident. And so as I said, I'm Dr. Bruno Cross. I'm a former public school teacher and principal in Western Washington, and Dr. Peterson is executive director with the Puget Sound Educational School District in Southern King County in Washington. And she's also an educational nonprofit consultant with Altera. And what the pictures that you see there are just a few of the books that we've been able to capture. Journey, Drawn Together, Arrival, and A Stone for Sasha, who are in these books we've used in different ways to share with kids and adults and parents and engage them in the practice of reading. And when I talk about the practice of reading, we'll discuss this a little bit more in depth, is aligned with Paulo Freire's just the importance in the act of reading, right? And that it's that reading the world precedes reading the word. And so in that spirit, we want to just recognize that Freire's work is touching people all over the world, and it's reached us in Western Washington, and so we want to learn about how we can do this and do this better in service to our kids in our world. So this cultural workshop is here's the agenda. We're going to do a quick meet and greet. And what I was hoping for is that we could just warm things up by just naming who we are, our vocation, and what maybe our favorite fruit. And this is just kind of just to get things warmed up and sweetened up for us to do some work together. And then we'll review a little bit of research and some data connected to literacy practices, specifically reading the world, visual literacy, and so forth, as you see there. And then I just try to address in a small form the challenges with reading and writing pedagogy. What's the problem here? What can we do that we're not doing? And then think about this new strategy, wordless picture books, and then do some practice with that, creative storytelling, and then share some questions, thoughts as a group, as a part of a consultation process to help Dr. Peterson and I and anyone else who's interested in this work to grow and continue learning with each other. So, and then we'll finish off with some closing affirmations. Hopefully it won't be too long. I know it's late in the UK and early in other places and late in other places. So I want to just recognize and appreciate everyone for being here. And the objective for that is to consider some ways which we undermine the reading, the act of reading interfere with critical agency and diminish the joy in terms of teaching and learning to improve literacy? You know, how do we, you know, what are we doing to undercut this important work that maybe we just don't know and that we could do better? Explore ways that we can reverse that trend and support the reclaiming of reading as part of our daily experiences. And obviously with keeping in mind that, you know, we're looking to experience some joy and satisfaction in who we are, where we are, and how we are in the world. And then that last piece is just engage in consultation with each other to collect some feedback, reflect on ideas, and generate some questions that might come up with the purpose of supporting the improvement of literacy, teaching, and learning in our schools and homes. And I want to stress that we're looking and hoping to bridge the home school connection in ways that are much more rigorous in terms of authenticity for families and especially those who are furthest from educational justice and opportunities. So who are we? And this is all of us. I'll start in modeling. This is a picture of Dr. Peterson and I, Barbara and Bruno. And so when we introduce yourself, just quickly name your profession, your name, and your favorite fruit. I am a former principal and teacher, and actually now just traveling. And I like most fruit, but today I like mango. Mango is definitely in my top list. But just thinking about Freire and some of his comments in his first book, mango is my fruit. So you can write your favorite fruit in the chat. Or say it and introduce yourself in chat and just say hi. So Sherry or Cherie DeSanto, I see that your audio is not working. Sounds great. Please place your answers in chat. Would be great.
Hi there, Bruno and everyone.
Hello. Hey, Simon.
So my name's Simon. I'm in Australia, so it's 7:20 in the morning. It's a civil hour to be awake, so I'm okay with that. My profession at the moment, I'm doing some work in we have a disability royal commission taking place here in Australia. I'm doing some work in that, but I kind of jump around between different kind of social justice policy roles. So that's kind of the space that I'm working in, social justice policy. And favorite fruit is actually exactly yours at the moment as well, Bruno, mango. We're about to hit mango season here, so I'll be eating a lot of those over the next few months.
All right, make sure you brush those teeth.
That's right. They get stuck, all those mango fibers. Thank you.
Absolutely. Nice to meet you, Simon. Next, anyone can pop in.
Hi, everyone. This is Nicole speaking. I am in Western New York, so it's only 4 p.m. here, so we're at a good time right now. I work as a substitute in elementary and middle schools, and my favorite fruit is grapes.
All right. And say your name one more time. I didn't see you pop up.
Nicole.
Hey, Nicole. Hello,
Hi.
hello, Nicole. And you love grapes. I appreciate you. Thank you for being a teacher and a substitute teacher in our profession. This is hard times, and so I really appreciate you. I see Kyla and Cherie have responded. While someone else waits to pop in, I'm just going to read theirs. Kyla Pecora, I hope I said that right. Hello, everyone. I'm a special education teacher. My favorite fruit is bananas. All right. And then Cherie, I'm Cherie. She's a life coach. I need a life coach. So My favorite fruit is today, I love that, is kiwi. Okay. Thank you, Cherie. We have a few more people, giving you just some open time for people to share.
Hi there, my name is Maddie. I am an elementary school teacher in upstate New York, and my favorite fruit is a strawberry.
All right, Maddie. Thank you for sharing. Strawberries are awesome. Strawberry, kiwi, and banana and mango. And then I want to name, here we go, Alyssa Karas. I hope I said that, Karas. I hope I said that right. I speak multiple languages, but I don't always get the stress on the right way. Hi, my name is Alyssa, and I'm a full-time graduate student and elementary school teacher in New York. My favorite fruit right now is watermelon. Love watermelon. Thank you for sharing that. And nice to meet you, Alyssa. And then Joshua, 8th grade social studies teacher, favorite food would be pineapple. Sweet pineapple. Thank you, Joshua, for sharing. And then Jessica, I'm an elementary teacher and my favorite fruit is apples. And I think that rounds off everyone. Thank you for sharing. Jessica, Joshua, Alyssa, Maddie, Simon, Nicole, Alyssa. I can't see the list of everyone. I think we have maybe a couple more. I'll just leave the floor open for anyone to pop in who hasn't shared already for a minute. All right, well, let's keep going. Thank you again for warming us up to that. I hope thinking about your favorite fruit is whetting your appetite for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, wherever you are, because this work is difficult, and we know that we need all the opportunities we have to recharge. And so, again, there's something so powerful when one is confronted with the realization that knowing a language may not be enough. There's so much about our communication process that just demands so much more of ourselves, of our kids. And so thank you for sharing that. My connection to Paulo Freire, I just want to, and all of us have our connections, and if you're here, somehow, some way, the work of Freire has reached you. I can tell you that in the beginning, there was a resistance to the work that Freire believes in and models and modeled in his life and has shared with so many around the world. When I was at Western Washington, I had the opportunity to work with a professor by the name of Kate Wayne, who introduced me to a book called Literacies of Power by Donaldo Macedo. And that book led me to visiting the Paulo Freire Institute and reading parts, if not the majority, of Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And then I went to a National Conference of Teachers of English in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and where I got a chance to listen to Donaldo Macedo speak. And then in 2019, I spent from 2000 to 2022 as a public school educator in various forms. And in 2019, I went to visit the Freire Institute for a second time and met Angela Biz Antunes. And I had the opportunity to meet Lugardis Costa Freire in 2001. And so there's and in this picture to the far right there is a picture of the book club, and that's Dr. Peterson and I, our little book club that we have, where we were doing some sugar painting and doing some other work that's very aligned with the topic of this presentation, of reading the world in a way that precedes reading the word, and trying to build capacity for communication. And the picture above there is a picture of me and the student working on this very work in that way. Reading the world. So Freire pushed back on ideas of banking models of education, where children are seen as these empty buckets, and teachers deposit knowledge, right? He argued that reading the world precedes reading the word, and that subsequently the reading of the word cannot be done without continuously reading the world. And then in his other address to a speech, or I think it was a speech, and the importance of the act of reading in 1983, he went on to say that reading is not exhausted merely by decoding the word or the written language, but rather anticipated by and extending into knowledge of the world. Again, reading the world precedes reading the word. And I love this quote that's, I'm not sure where it was. I think it might have been in Pedagogy of the Oppressed. This is one that really resonates and pushed my heart into the right place, I think. I learned to read and write on the ground of the backyard of my house and in the shade of the mango trees, with words from my world rather than from the wider world of my parents. The earth was my blackboard, sticks my chalk. And that quote just really hits home with me in a lot of ways. And again, my favorite fruit is mango today for this reason. And I just love the taste of mango anyways. But one of my goals is to spend as much time as I can in the shade of a mango tree, and just observing the world as I'm traveling through South America and reflecting on everything that I'm learning. The other piece that I wanted to address, and this is going to be a little bit of a marathon that I'm going to try to get through as quickly as I can, on visual literacy, reading the world, and functional literacy. And hopefully some of these resources can help stimulate your thinking. Visual literacy, again, refers to a group of vision competencies that we bring to seeing and having this experience with other of our sensory experiences. And it's very fundamental to who we are as humans. We want to make sure that we can visually be free to discriminate and interpret visible actions. And in these environments that we find ourselves in, we can creatively use who we are, what we know, in communicating with each other. And so John Dewey spoke about this, years and years ago, and I think it's very much alive today. And again, it helps us to understand and enjoy who we are, where we are, and what we're doing. Visual literacy is far more memorable. I mean, I think Hollywood has it right. I think propaganda is not making a mistake in what they do with how they bombard us with the human spectrum with pictures and advertisements and movies and so forth, and they can inculcate in kids and young adults and even older folks a deep level of truth that becomes their truth or can become their truth, even if it's not fact. So there's power, opportunity to enrich and understand, increase enjoyment, but there's also challenges, right? And a massive impact, and we can see that by the way that our current politics is around the world and in the United States and in Brazil and in other places, how the attack on our senses through visual literacy, through visual modes of communication has been so powerful. I picked this up from UNESCO, functional literacy, and I thought this was okay, and it worries me a little bit because when we talk about the capacity of people to engage in these activities where literacy is required, I get that, and I appreciate and respect that. And I think learning to read and write is essential to participation. I think Freire speaks to that. But I also worry about undermining, wholesale undermining of Indigenous cultures and other communities that maybe don't engage in reading and writing in the same form that the progressive first world, perhaps, if you want to say that, does. And what can we do that's a little bit better? And so I found this from the National Council of Teachers of English that I seem to fit a little bit better with me. At its simplest, literacy is the way we interact with the world around us and how we shape it and are shaped by it. And it is how we communicate with others via reading and writing, but also by speaking, listening, and creating. It is how we articulate our experience in the world and declare we are here. And I feel like this resonated with me in how I see the work of Freire around the world, and the work that I've done with kids by just telling kids, I'm not here to say that English is the only language or the language that holds the highest value, but rather just to say it's a tool, one tool, and that reading and writing is a tool, one tool, again, not enough on its own, but can shape who we are and how we interact with the world if we use it in concert with other forms of communication. So, and I think this Amber Peterson in this particular piece speaks to that. So when asked as a teacher and as a public school educator, I often start the class with asking students, how many people like to read? And they, very few, if any, hands go up. So my question to them was, why? Why is that? Where, what happened, right? And so in this particular slide, we see a possible response that through symbols and in patterns, the making sense of the world, building a perfectly personal schema of our own, that kids have that, and kids need to be able to bring their and then be encouraged to bring themselves to the text. And if they don't, what does that do? How does that bring life to the text, right? And so by giving the students an opportunity, by giving them these processes and tools for writing and reading, we can allow the humanity of our students, of each other, of ourselves to show itself. It can't just be a mechanized technical process. It has to be adaptive. And so in that process, sometimes we lose the reader because we use language that sometimes undermines the idea of reading itself, and kids get disenchanted. And we say things like, oh, well, maybe you can watch the movie. I mean, how many people have seen The Great Gatsby or watched other movies? And teachers have endorsed that in some way, shape, or form. And it's not to say that watching movies is not a good activity, but what are we doing to the opportunities for kids to see reading and writing as a joyful experience and not as something in competition with other forms of literacy that may be also powerful. And then some data here on leisure reading in the United States, and just to summarize this, leisure reading is at an all-time low. We don't buy books as often as we used to. Maybe that's not for real for us who do read, but for the people who don't read, I'm careful with saying don't read, because I'm advocating wordless picture books and reading the world. But at some point we have to recognize that, as Freire did, that there are people in the world who are disassociated or marginalized or somehow disconnected from the political, the social, the economic structure because of the fact that they can't decipher symbols in books and newspapers and contracts and so forth. So reading is not always fun, but if we're not having kids and young people learn that reading can be fun and can be useful, then maybe we might lose a swath of people in that process. So, and obviously this is important because we need our kids to learn to be critical thinkers, problem solvers, collaborators, and so forth, and to be able to direct their own learning. And then also co-constructors of knowledge, that we need to make sure that students can see themselves as explorers, conjecturers, constructors of learning. They learn to pose questions, having a curious mindset, and then become a co-constructor of knowledge with their teachers, with their mentors, and so forth. So this is what we want of our kids, right? And then finally, all of this is important because there is this whole world out there, right? That's operating where the economy, the money, the tools, and so forth. They're out there, and they are demanding that we read. And I think I mentioned earlier disinformation, some myth issues, some generated paranoia as a result of some of the false propaganda. That all those things require that our students be critical of information, and much of much of what's being communicated is now in mixed form, and with the internet and so forth. It's imperative that we uncover ways that we can invigorate learners to engage in reading books, newspapers, magazines, blogs, and so forth. That's a mouthful. I wanted just to share a couple of projects that I've worked on with other teachers and within my various positions in school that have a high degree of visual literacy. Even at times where I was told not to. I did a Halloween exposition project early where my principal told me I couldn't do that because it was against church state issues. We played croquet in our class and learned the rules of croquet and set up tournaments and designed fields. It was amazing. Did a lot of daily writing projects where the kids just looked at simple everyday items, statues, and so forth to reflect in their writing. And I want to highlight that all of the kids that I've worked with are immigrant refugee kids over the 20 plus years that I've been a teacher or educator or education leader, and in these projects as well. And community walk and jots where we build a word wall of what we've seen and co-create language together, sometimes make up new words, which is a lot of fun. And others. So basically the problem that I'm trying to address is an idea that maybe we are failing to engage many linguistically and culturally diverse learners of color intellectually. And to give a little context to that, when I've taught ELL, English language learners, or ESL or EFL, and all of the kids that I work with are ones that typically reading, to put it mildly, has left behind. To borrow a quote from our President Bush, we have built an entire education system based on decoding and reading text, alienating so many of our vulnerable learners. And so, and then I think even more powerfully is that potential new readers have grown to dislike reading and become bored and prematurely disengaged from text, specifically that build agency in a very specific and political and direct way. And I'll skip this chart, but again, we underestimate kids, and we focus on the basics, and we don't create motivating context for kids to practice higher order thinking. And so these are problems that I think need to be addressed. And I think wordless picture books is a strategy that we've used to help do that. Again, promoting or activating schema, prior knowledge, and then also helping students with interrupted formal education, as well as non-SIFE students with building literacy. The kids, they're capable. They know how to read. They know how to write. They know how to create and produce. They know how to think. They may not know how to do it in the language that we can recognize, but they are critical thinkers. And I believe that. And I think we can do better to get kids feeling and reacting and responding to what we do in a way that's helps them build strength rather than diminish. So it's more asset-based. And both their language of choice, of home, heritage, and so forth, and English speaking if necessary. And I've found pretty tremendous amount of success in getting kids to believe in themselves this way. So again, this particular slide speaks to the idea that a wordless picture book tells a story, but it does it, and Scholastic's website here speaks about it through the lens of young children, like 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. But what about the adolescents or young adults or even mature adults? What can we do for them? So wordless picture books is a strategy that we've found that we believe that if we are thoughtful and careful about curated wordless picture books, graphic novels, and comic books, and we can use them more broadly, that we can engage a large array of English language learners and struggling student readers, and then helping also their parents, peers, aunts, uncles, and so forth, to bring out that critical consciousness that all people have regarding their reading expertise, to strengthen who they are and be contributors to the world in a transformative way. I'm going to skip a couple of these things because I just want to get to the practice. This is sort of slides talking about my most recent school, Seattle World School, where I was principal. And I think I already spoke to a lot of this. And the question that we needed or wanted to confront is, can we engage students, young students, at their cognitive levels without requiring that they be fully competent in reading academic English? And I believe we can. And then more specifically, would students in that classroom be more engaged academically, spend more time speaking and listening in their first language and English language? And then third, feel a greater sense of personal belief in themselves, self-esteem, growth, and so forth. And would they be inclined to build L1 and English language literacy skills? And what we found is that those are all true, that everything here happens, right? We did use wordless picture book, and I'll speak to my experience since Dr. Peterson is not present. I will be providing a link to a copy of a paper that she co-wrote with someone about this and the work that she's done. But it's all similar to this. We used a book called Journey by Aaron Becker in a all non-native immigrant refugee school classroom with emerging English language learners. And the outcome was that there was rich conversation about those main ideas and themes that typically students would be shut out of had they never been only given albeit illustrated at times, but not necessarily focused on the illustration, but mostly text-based work where they would be trying to figure out words before they could even get to the theme. And so we wanted the kids to get to the theme and then be able to be fighting for, if not almost like fighting for air, for the words to express the deep emotional connections that they have with the themes that are being discussed. And that happened. And so I'm almost done. And so the last part of this presentation, which is going to hopefully take a little bit of your time to do a little work. And I know that you've done a lot of work already listening to this. And I this is like the worst part. I love talking about this stuff, but I want to hear other people. So I want to introduce you to a book. This is part of the cultural piece. And I think this book speaks maybe some of you have heard of this or seen it in some way, shape, or form. But Nikolai Popov is a writer who put this book together, and I've seen reprints of this with words, which was slightly disappointing to see, but I have an original that was wordless. And so what I hoped we could do is just engage in a shared reading activity. It's not too long, so hopefully we can get you to bed or to your next agenda soon. So thank you again for being here and being a part of this and listening to my long diatribe stuff. So here we go. As you read, and I'm going to use quotes because that's what people say when they're not reading text. As you review, read, experience this text or this context, think about, how does this resonate with you? And be ready to kind of share back a little bit. Yes. And then what is one connection you can share maybe, or any other thoughts about the text or context? And then at the second share out is, how did the experience feel for you? How is this experience similar to or different from reading a book with text? And then in what ways might you see this as a useful tool for instruction and learning? And again, this is for everyone. So if you could share your thoughts in chat as verbally, that'd be great. And then in what ways might this strategy be a pedagogical challenge for schools and school districts? So first, read quietly together, first impressions, pause and jot down any words that might resonate with you as scenes appear. And then if you have sounds, just think about how the music impacts the visuals. This is a bonus for wordless picture books. I don't think that Nikolai Popov. Oh Lord. And then reflect, write down a short description or reflection of your impressions. So here we go. I'm going to do a quick share. Switch on to share. New share. Where is it? All right, here we go. Ready? All right. So just quickly, think about in what ways this story resonate with you, and what is it one connection maybe that you can share regarding the themes in this book, or any other thoughts about the text. Write these down, or and obviously if you'd like to share this verbal response, please do so, but also write it down so we can record it for learning for myself and Barbara. So thank you for watching that.
Да-да.
Ну как там с деньгами?
А?
We'll take about 2 minutes to gather our thoughts, and then the mic is open for anyone to start sharing. And I'll obviously type your response in the chat just so we can record your thoughts and maybe use it in some form to inform our work. So and others. So they can...
Кому кажу сало?
So I'm going to stop sharing here in about 30 seconds. All right. Thanks for that clarification, Alyssa. Karis. I'm glad I got it right the first time. All right, so Kyla, thank you for this feedback. This book reminded me of visually of one of my favorite children's book series. Simon, I see this resonated with me as I found it expressed how such a large scale world events such as war can be connected. Kyla, thank you for that honest feedback. I hope you were able to turn down the eerie music. I have another version of it that has no music. I actually have the book, so it doesn't have the music. So I would, if you have an access to a book of this type, maybe the music's not necessary. You may be nervous for what might happen, although the visuals were more lighthearted. And then I see Nicole. I thought about how they went to war over a flower and a rock to sit on and ended up destroying everything. I think about the current war in Ukraine and how Russia is destroying that country for whatever reason. Yeah, it's quite troubling and sad that war happens, and the people in power have their reasons and their motivations, and hopefully we can work together to stifle that a little bit and redirect. When people see something they like, Alyssa, Karis, when people see something they like, we do what we can in order to gain what we want. We never see how awful our destruction to what we want and end up losing everything in the process. That's true. I'm sure others feel similar. I've seen that as well. Joshua, one connection that I had was when I teach about Cold War between the United States and Russia, USSR. I read the Butter Battle book to the kids and show the arms race that eventually would lead to mutual assured destruction. The ending drawing of this book made me think of that. Well, I've never heard of that book. Thank you for sharing that, Joshua. If anyone would like to speak to their piece, that would be great to hear and share. So I'll just my voice to the side to let that be open, that space.
Hi, Bruno. Yeah, I thought I'd just kind of expand on what I just wrote. Like I certainly kind of found myself reflecting back on those first few images once we were well into the book, kind of thinking about the missed opportunity that the two characters had to bond over that shared passion for flowers. And there was I recall there being so many flowers around them. And I just kind of, perhaps the title of the book kind of why already had implanted in my head the thought of, why didn't they connect and why couldn't they have found a more, peaceful way to express their love for the same thing rather than ending up going to war over what seemed to be a shared passion. So I just kind of found my brain constantly going back to those first couple of images and reflecting back and forth between what was happening.
Yeah. I wondered that too, and I wondered how we could anticipate those things, and when we're sitting at the table of the decision making, how we can capitalize on the beauty of where we are and what we're doing before we start making decisions that involves tanks and missiles and so forth. So yeah, I feel that too. I like flowers. Thanks for that, Simon. So while we're waiting for anyone who might feel motivated to speak, I want to read Cherie's real quick. What really jumped out at me is the times that I have showed books like these to our grandchildren. I have experienced myself as well as witnessed through them how reading wordless picture books allows us to interpret the meaning of the story, and that we are watching versus the words directing what we think or feel, and not allowing us to organically experience it. having an organic experience allows us to bring our own thoughts and interpretations to our mind. Cherie, I just want to say thank you for that, and just point back to Kyla's reflection, the music, for example. Kyla was distracted by that, and I can imagine how that might have driven her and Simon as well when you commented about why is implanting a thought. The word WHY with a question mark maybe implanted a thought in your head as the music may have distracted others. I agree with what Cherie is pushing or pointing out here, rather, that sometimes the visuals are just enough, right? In and of themselves, and that the other stuff might actually be the stuff that's distracting us. So thank you for that, Cherie. If anyone else would like to expand on their entry here, that'd be great to hear.
I had just thought of another connection, working with the younger kids, you will sometimes get the, I want to play with that toy. No, I want to play with that toy. And then you get the arguments and the back and forth. And as a teacher, you come over and you're just like, why are you fighting over a toy? Like, can't you play together or take turns? And it just reminded me of like that battle, except they took it to the nuclear level of destroying everything.
Yeah. Yes. Elementary classes can take that tone sometimes, and kids can take it there for sure. I'm sorry. Who was that speaking? I didn't recognize your voice.
Nicole.
Hey, Nicole, thanks for sharing that. And I wonder if the kids, in your scenario, where are those influences coming from, and how can we steer and guide them towards a different way of interacting? It's not always easy.
And I think now, like post-COVID times, it's gotten worse because there was such a long time when they weren't interacting with peers. That those social skills, those social emotional skills haven't been developed as fully as they might have been before COVID times.
Yeah, we're finding the same thing in Washington with kids across the entire spectrum of all grades. That those year or two for a lot of kids were just lost opportunity for social peer impressions, learning with and from and by each other. So yeah, that's a very unfortunate experience for a lot of the kids. Thanks for sharing that. As people, I'll take one or two more comments. The other piece that I was curious about is how the impact of this story might be. And I noticed some of you shared your own personal impact as adults. And I'm wondering if some of the older aged kids and even, or maybe even the parents, because one of the experiences that we've had is moms and dads and uncles and so forth who are not able to read and decipher text. But when we give them the book Journey, for example, who with no text, or the other book, other books like The Arrival and so forth, that kids and adults tend to build, co-create language with each other and share what they know in their language while flipping through the pages of a book. And as they do that, they inculcate into kids this idea that it's not threatening, that opening up a book can be fun, that going through text and talking about text can be a learning experience as well as a fun experience. And Journey, or A Stone for Sasha, which is another book that was on my list, is Stone for Sasha is a sort of a sad story, and Journey is sort of a hopeful story. And so those themes can resonate with kids and really bring out experiences that they've had, and then also do that with their parents, which then helps to promote the home school partnership. The last piece here that I wanted to help your help with in our collaborative work on, and let me share screen one more time, is the second share out. How did this experience feel for you? And maybe some of you didn't like the eerie noise of the background music, and I respect and understand that. So outside of that, the idea of a wordless text, how did the experience feel, and how is this experience similar to or different than from reading a book with text? And then how might you find this is a useful tool for instruction and learning, and also not just instruction in the classroom, but the partnership, homeschool partnership, adult literacy, and so forth, for those of you who might be involved in that work. And then the last piece there is, in what ways might this strategy be a pedagogical challenge, given whatever resources might not be available, or other paradigms that might be antagonistic to this story or to this idea. So if you could share in chat, and as you typed, if you are open to unmuting yourself and sharing what you're thinking, that would be awesome, as well as typing it in chat.
Hi, this is Kyla.
Hey, Kyla.
I was just going to share that some of my immediate reflections on a wordless book. As a teacher, I think that our first thought is usually to guide the thinking of our students. And so even my students have special needs. And even if I'm sharing a book that's low vocabulary or doesn't have a lot of words on the page, I tend to speak about maybe what I notice and what I see on a page. So the experience of not having any language at all while the book is being shown is a new idea to me. But I think that it's important, like you said, to making books seem more approachable to students who might be like emergent readers. And like you said, making it less threatening for them. Some of my students also do come from homes where their parents have disabilities, and I think it would be a great experience for them to be able to share a book that they understand with their parents and with their families at home.
Yeah, thanks for what's your name again? I'm sorry, I missed that at the beginning.
Kyla.
Hey Kyla, thanks for sharing that. I've had that question myself in terms of students and families and individuals with special needs or different abilities, and I'm just curious about one strategy I've used is for them to build their own stories with their own pictures, with their own, and obviously young people do things like, show and tell at school and so forth, which are similar activities that pull kids' imagination into the conversation. And so anything that we can do, and I think this is what this strategy is trying to do, is create space for creativity.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so thanks for sharing that, Kyla.
Of course.
Hi, my name is Alyssa, and watching the wordless book, I love the idea. And like, I recently read an article, I forgot what article it was, but it was about how when you read something in school, like you're mainly like trying to find like one idea from like the reading or the book that the teacher thinks or what the curriculum wants. So I'm used to reading something and being like, all right, I have to find this one idea. So having like a picture book where there's no words and it's mainly like what you feel and what you think, it's nerve-wracking in that sense where it's like, I don't want to get the wrong answer. But when interpreting things, there's never really a wrong answer. So bringing in like these wordless picture books, it allows students to like feel at ease, like when they're growing up, being like, all right, it's what I think, it's what I'm interpreting from all these pictures. So I think it's a great experience to have students actually engage with the text instead of like being nervous finding like the right answer that the teacher's looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that resonates with anyone else. I mean, does anyone else want to speak to what Alyssa's sharing real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate what Alyssa just had to share. I think that this kind of like engaging in learning in this way really made well, for me, it made it feel personal. And I think it made me have to connect at a personal level with the work in front of me. And it's, I think, my experience with text is that it can be so impersonal. You're just looking for an answer. And I think that kind of can be kind of drilled into you from the really early learning years, where the purpose of the text is to pass a exam or to score the score you need to show that you've learned. Whereas this kind of exercise was really about how did I connect personally with the work in front of me, which creates all sorts of different learning opportunities, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Anyone else want to speak to Alyssa or Simon's comments?
And this is Nicole speaking. I just think about how some stories we read, students don't find a personal connection to. It's just a story they're reading or listening to or whatever, and they have no personal connections to it. Whereas with wordless books, there's no text for them to connect to. They almost have to find a personal connection to interpret what's happening. And so it brings that reading per se to a more personal level and allows them to make more connections.
Yeah. You know, Nicole, I appreciate that, and Simon, that also resonates in terms of personalizing. Often, I think someone mentioned in a reflection earlier that there's a I think it was Cherie who said that I've experienced myself as well as witnessed others, and I'm reading her chat entry. Through them, how reading wordless picture books allows us to interpret the meaning of the story we're watching versus directing what we think or feel and not allowing us to organically experience it. I often wonder about how we engage in all sorts of different media, and the media not only is overlaid with sound, music, but also with other people speaking. And then you hear, as my family members seem to always argue on both sides of in Brazil, specifically, that you're speaking like that president or speaking like that politician, and you're sort of a mouthpiece and repeating what they're saying rather than being creative with your own language, with your own perspectives, with your own thoughts. And how do we liberate ourselves from being these paraphrasers and these pundits, I guess, for lack of a better word, and then justify whatever it is, whatever position that they're advocating for? And do we know do we really believe that we're advocating for that and that we actually want to advocate for that? Those questions come up for me. Let me look through the chat real quick and see what other people are saying. If you have anything you want to add to this conversation, please do so. It's dialogue. And thanks for Alyssa and Simon and Nicole for sharing, and those of you who've written in there. Jessica wrote, also for my students who can't read and write, I do have them write their own stories through pictures, and together we work on adding words. Thank you for sharing that, Jessica. I think that's a very powerful tool for not only for thinking, but also for sharing. And I'm wondering, do the kids get a chance to read each other's stories?
I use this strategy. I have a large class of ELL students, so a lot of them come to my room knowing no English, and slowly we're building the English language for them. And so when they're writing their stories, they don't know how to write it, so they start with their pictures, and slowly between me and other students in the class who might speak their language that I don't, we build a story together, and then they always share their stories at the end, like a reader's theater.
Okay, reader's theater, co-construction. Those are, and so they do get a chance to see each other and hear each other's stories. That's awesome. I can't be more emphatic on what Jessica just shared, how important it is that that kids experience that transformation together as a team, and are also able to express with each other and grow with each other. The ones who know something can share it and so forth with others. So thank you so much for that. Simon wrote here, back to Shuri. Joshua, I'm trying to go back and make sure I didn't miss anything. I think Joshua wrote, I think it will give students a chance to think critically for themselves and come up with their own conclusions. They can partner with other students in order to come up with meaning. If there are no words, I think it would also be interesting to see different conclusions that students make, because it is unlikely that they will have all the same experience with the book. What we've noticed, thank you for that, Josh. What I've noticed and what Barbara noticed is that often teachers don't know their kids and don't know their families as well as they thought they did. And kids don't know each other as well as they thought they did. When some of these kids start to reflect on these wordless picture experiences, it starts to grow their confidence in being able to express their voice. And then as they're engaged in the practice of doing this, they become more fluent, more confident, and that confidence sort of compounds on itself. And then it can become a risky experience, because once you unleash that confidence and unleash that agency, it's difficult to contain. And I don't want necessarily to contain it, but it can present a challenge. And so I wonder what people think about that in terms of pedagogical challenges, given the social construct of schools and paradigms of control and so forth. I want to just highlight what Nicole just wrote here. I think it leans into Freire in critical pedagogy. It allows that critical thinking and letting students guide their own learning and be a partner in their learning, that Freire found so important in becoming free from oppression. And I want to just add a little bit to that. Thank you, Nicole, for that. As a principal and as a teacher, leader in a classroom, I've often found myself in this interesting duality of wanting the kids to be free of demanding of them that they engage and so forth, but then at the same time, being the one that signs their diplomas or the ones that gives them grades. And so I've had to shift my practice in a lot of ways over the years, and even from the very beginning, in terms of how I interpret kids' abilities. And so using standards, using skills-based approaches, opening the doors up to a larger array of literacy canons, including wordless picture books, that has really challenged my teaching and the experiences that I have with colleagues, standing in front of school boards and telling them, hey, we're not going to limit, we're not going to prohibit, we're not going to do these kind of things that sometimes feel a little bit oppressive, or a lot oppressive. And so opening the door to free expression and truly seeing those transformative experiences happen in front of me has created a change in me. And so I become the learner in the classroom rather than always the teacher, and the students then become the teacher, which is also a Freirean approach. And so I don't know if anyone else wants to address anything else that's been written here. Simon, a challenge, how to make this kind of learning accessible for people who live with vision impairments. Absolutely. Not as a separate process, but so that they can engage in the same learning experience as other students with sight. Simon, I empathize with this. One of my favorite books is Helen Keller talking about her teacher, Anne Sullivan. I think it's chapter 3 of her book, where she talks about learning the value of words and through the water and feeling and the spelling of water in her hand and so forth. And so I'm curious about how, and that's just an area that I haven't explored, how we can help all kids engage with all their senses and not just wordless picture books, but even lacking in pictures and just sound or feel and touch, right? I don't read Braille, but there are people who do, and their senses are heightened, and so they are also engaged in reading the world in their own unique ways. And so thanks for highlighting that challenge, Simon. I hope I didn't miss anyone. If you haven't shared something and you'd like to share something that didn't come up, a question that I didn't ask, I'm going to give just a few seconds here for people to unmute and do so, or type in, and then we'll be closing this session. And I just wanted to, while people are thinking about that, I just wanted to say thank you for all your contributions, and the work that you're doing wherever you're doing it. If you haven't already filled out the attendance certificate, please do so. The Freire Conference folks who are connected to this have sent us a link there. I wanted to say thank you for engaging in this conversation and for contributing your thoughts and ideas and your favorite fruit, of course. The value of this is immeasurable, I think, in terms of what we can do beyond text, and not just wordless picture books, but being able to see the world and reflect on the world and experience the world and taste, feel, touch, hear the world in ways that inform us, that help us be transformative within ourselves and with each other. And so for those of you who are strong and are developing your voice as instructors and leaders across schools, thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for believing in yourselves and fighting for justice in this way. So that's my last words, and Barb and I are going to continue doing this work. Hopefully, who knows, the world is a small place. We'll run across each other somewhere. Unless there's any other final words, I just wanted to say thank you and good night. Thank you, Cherie. I appreciate that. Thanks, Joshua. Thanks, Kyla. Thanks, Miss Karis, Alyssa. Have a wonderful day, Simon, down there in Australia. Appreciate you, Nicole. Be well there in New York. Thanks you, Renata, Arauju. Hope I said that right. All right.